This episode of the show is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free 30-day trial and free audiobook of your choosing by going to audibletrial.com/missspots. Choose from over 180,000 different titles, such as Chris Jericho's latest book, No is a 4-letter word. It's even narrated by the man himself. Audiobooks are perfect for the person on the move. Believe me, they're great. Maybe you want a mystery novel or a biography of someone you love. Audible has it all. Plus, it's free to try. If you don't like it, which would be weird, cancel and keep your free audiobook that you downloaded forever. Go try it now at audibletrial.com/missspots. Audible. Listening is the new reading.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game.
Welcome back to the Missspots podcast on missspots.com, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and Geek Life Radio. My name is Mike, and with me, as always, is the Shinsuke Nakamura to my Randy Orton. Here's Kevin.
Yeah, I believe that they're actually setting up Nakamura and Orton as the next tag team title. What's the thing?
Champions?
Challengers. Challengers, yeah. Because my logic here is that they have actually participated in more tag team matches than like Breezango have in the past 6 months.
That is very true.
They're basically best bros.
Yes.
And I think it makes a lot of sense. I think they probably have a lot in common. They probably have, they talk about
boots.
Yeah, they both do wear boots. I think that's probably about the only thing they do have in common.
Yeah. Well, moving on from that, we have to review Clash of Champions from this past weekend, the final pay-per-view of the year, and then also television, as we now are firmly in the direction of Royal Rumble at the end of next month. So, getting into the pay-per-view, we started the pre-show with Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder having a match. The Hype Bros have exploded and they are going at one another. The victor, Mojo Rawley, was pretty much who we thought it would be. It was pretty much the only one who made sense. And is this over? We don't know, because they didn't bring this up on SmackDown on Tuesday.
Kind of not surprising. I am envisioning a very half-hearted, lackluster push for Mojo, because they can't seem to really do anything with mid-carders other than have them hot potato titles back and forth here or there. Mojo, I do not see big things in Mojo's future. First of all, his name is Mojo, so there's that. But I have to appreciate his now kind of apropos intensity. His basically staying hyped was awful and annoying, but the fact that he is a heel and being vicious and violent and attacking someone like Zack Ryder is a good thing, and I think he did a good job in this match. Overall, it was a fine match. Mojo's running forearm to the face is an interesting finisher. I believe he's been using that for a while.
Used it for a little while,
but it kind of takes it up a notch when you're playing a heel, when it looks very violent, and I do think it should be called the running forearm to the face. I don't think we need a name for that. I mean, Seth Rollins still has the knee, a spin out knee strike or whatever he calls it. So, but overall, a fine pay-per-view opener, a fine pre-show opener.
According to Wikipedia, the finishing move is called running forearm smash to a cornered opponent. That's at least what they have it listed as.
That sounds great. It's a mouthful. I do not envy the commentators having to say that quickly.
The main show itself started off with the United States championship three-way match or triple threat match with Baron Corbin.
Three-way sounds a little more sexy, so stick with three-way.
We'll stick with three-way. Baron Corbin defending against Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. And Dolph Ziggler came out on top here. I know we pretty much said that we didn't expect that to happen, but there was honestly a little bit of me that
I just want to point out, we didn't pretty much say that. We said exactly that. We said there's no way that he's taking that title. He's there to take a pinfall. And he goes out and wins that match. I was shocked by this.
Same thing happened, I want to say it was earlier this year or it might have been late last year, where he was a kind of throw-in person for like a number one contenders fatal four-way, and he came out the victor of that when we were like, oh, he's just in there to take a pinfall, but he ended up winning, and then I think he faced AJ at a pay-per-view for the title.
It also could have been what you were talking about with Dean when he went up against Dean for the World Championship on SmackDown.
That might have been it.
Yeah.
That might have been it. And it's very surprising with that finish. It was a cool, interesting spot for the finish, but then I saw yesterday morning when I was making my rounds on the internet that the spot's actually been done before, but with AJ in the place of Bobby Roode.
Yeah, they've done I think they've done a couple times.
I absolutely forgot about that.
It's still a great spot.
Yeah.
Listen, the baffling thing here to me is Baron Corbin. The guy seemed to kind of have his ticket punched to be an up-and-coming guy on the roster, and he has just kind of been cut off at the knees at every opportunity, whether it's the Money in the Bank briefcase. They now give him a consolation championship. It seems that way, and once again, not featured at all on the following SmackDown. He did freak out and throw a garbage can after the match, so trying to show his frustration. But Baron's really in kind of no man's land right now. Bobby Roode is miscast. Bobby Roode is a heel. He should be playing a heel. And I've read some things where people are saying that Bobby Roode's been one of the few guys they've handled well with his call-up. I just don't see it.
No, not really.
He's still getting a good pop, and he's been around championships, but he hasn't been handled well. His character isn't really much more than a guy who says glorious a bunch of times. Neither one of those two guys look particularly good coming out of this. This was a fine match. I think it was. I saw some also saying this was the match of the night. Not at all. This was a fine triple threat match or a three-way, as you said earlier, and it was an interesting finish. But I still don't think it was the best match in the evening.
No, it wasn't. And then we get some interesting stuff later on with Dolph on SmackDown, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Fatal four-way. Should we just call it a four-way?
Yeah.
We should have gone with Menage a Trois for the triple threat match, but that's behind us now. The SmackDown Tag Team Championship, Usos against The New Day, against Gable and Benjamin, against Rusev and Aiden English. Rusev and Aiden English got huge pops when they came out.
They were the crowd favorite.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say that if the crowd would have gotten their way, Rusev and Aiden English win that match.
Is Aiden English the first wrestler in history with a singing gimmick that is over with the crowd?
Possibly. I think it's only because he's singing about Rusev Day.
Possibly.
I think that's really what it comes down to. This match was a mess.
Yeah.
This was an absolute mess. Having the four competitors in there at all times and then having to tag out it was hard to watch. I didn't care for this.
No, it's hard to follow. You're trying to figure out, who's legal out of four teams. And there was some okay spots in there. Gable had a run for a little bit where he looked near unbeatable.
But that was at the very end of the match.
Yes.
That led directly into the finish.
Yeah, that really did. Yeah,
which true. You always call that a chaos theory?
Chaos theory.
Who's move is
Doug
that?
Williams,
okay.
an English wrestler.
Okay, but that kind of was it a rolling
O'Connor roll to the turnbuckle into a German suplex. Yeah,
it was impressive him being able to throw some guys around like Big E even, and really, really impressive there. All the guys got a chance for their moment. They got a chance to shine. The Usos retaining probably the least interesting thing to happen out of that. I do think that Gable and Benjamin could have used a shot in the arm. I think I picked them to win that match. And quite honestly, having Rusev and Aiden English pulling out the titles would have been really interesting considering the crowd reaction and the crowd reaction they got the next night or 2 nights later on SmackDown. But the Usos are right now probably the best tag team on SmackDown, so having them carry the tag team belts is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. And then we had the Lumberjack match for the Women's Championship with Charlotte and Natalya. Typical Lumberjack kind of spots go on here. You've really only had one babyface on the outside,
which
in
made
Naomi.
it really weird. And this was another match that was just a mess. It was a mess. I liked Natalya continually throwing Charlotte outside to get beaten up, but once again, you had one babyface out there to go against all the heels. She just stayed on her side of the ring. She never really got involved until the very end or near the end. And the fighting was not believable. There was a lot of really poor looking spots where specifically Liv Morgan was just throwing the most half-hearted punches at the back of somebody. They're just not, when you have talent that is not seasoned, putting them out there in a chaos situation where things can't be kind of meticulously booked is a recipe for failure. And overall, this was a mess of a match.
Mm-hmm. Afterwards, we got a promo from Natalya as Renee went and interviewed her in the ring, and pretty much you don't appreciate me, you never did, you never will, you don't deserve me type of thing. And then kind of leaving it open is she retiring? Is she what? Afterwards, as she left the ring and walked up the ramp. We got no follow-up to this on Tuesday.
I've got a theory. Maybe her and Dolph are just going to go hang out because they did the same exact thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
2 days away from each other. I mean, so SmackDown copies the Absolution angle with the 3 women coming up, and then Dolph copies Natalya from SmackDown 2 nights later.
Wasn't there an old rule you don't reuse a gimmick for or a storyline for 20 years or something like that? WWE has resorted to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They'll reuse something.
And this is another thing. No follow-up at all. This gets a in-ring interview after the match. You get crocodile tears from Natalya. Didn't look very believable, but okay, they're still trying to sell this, and they don't even mention it. Even a offhanded comment about this, the fact that Natalya's not there, would have been something. But quite honestly, they probably don't have an idea of what they're going to do with this going forward. It would not surprise me at all. So I'm always for these stories that can continue on with characters away from the championship. I love that. Just do something with it.
And, thinking about, actually continuing on with that trend, the very next match becomes the 3rd out of 7 matches that had no follow-up on their next episode of television. The Bludgeon Brothers defeating Breezango. Neither team was on TV the following SmackDown. Bludgeon Brothers beat Breezango pretty handedly. And you would think, okay, then this means something new for the Bludgeon Brothers. But no.
Yeah, but also they've been used sporadically, and last thing we would need with another tag team match on SmackDown, because that's all we got the entire time. I'm fine with the Bludgeon Brothers being up because they need to start a new feud or something, or just continue to squash local talent. That's not as egregious to me as not seeing anything about Baron or about Natalya.
And after this, we had the tag team match of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn fighting for their continued employment against Randy Orton and Shinsuke Nakamura, with the dual special guest referees of Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan. This was certainly a match, and it had some good points. It had some strange points, such as triangle. I think that the finish was probably just what you needed to get that done. It was fine. It was something along the lines of what we expected. Shane being giving priorities to wanting to get rid of them by not counting for them, and then Brian taking liberties and fast counting for them to retain their employment.
I liked this. I liked pretty much the start of the match where they were both counting pinfalls and they were doing it on different counts basically, was ridiculous. And it took them 5 minutes before they decided to split the mat in two, the ring in two, and you take this side and I take this side. That was ridiculous. And this was an overbooked mess in so many ways. But out of all the overbooked messes during this pay-per-view, this is the one that worked because they were setting something up. They had planted seeds going forward. I am sick and tired of Shane McMahon. I want nothing to do with him. But they utilized this for the best way they possibly could. I think the finish in general was really well done. Out of all the ways this could have fleshed out, I think Daniel Bryan getting pushed into Shane, them having tensions, him not counting, Daniel, that fast count, the way that flowed from the moment that we saw that real tension kind of ratcheted it up, and it was a really nice, it built to a nice crescendo at the very end. So cheers, good job. It was not an angle that I'm all that thrilled with, but they executed it very well.
Mm-hmm. And then the main event, AJ Styles defending the WWE Championship against Jinder Mahal. This was, I know that the crowd wasn't into this. The crowd was pretty much sitting on their hands the entire time, and I saw a lot of people on Twitter complaining about it. I thought this was a fine match. This was Jinder's best match.
Oh, with hands down, and that is not damning with faint praise. I think this was a very good match. I think this was the best wrestled match of the night. I don't think there's a question about that in my mind.
This was the match of the night.
I could not find anyone saying positive things about this match other than the fact that Jinder lost. Jinder worked a body part, the ribs, the entire match. He pulled out moves that we had not seen him do before. This had a good flow to it. AJ did what he always does. And I don't want to hear that he dragged a match out of Jinder that was a good... No, Jinder held up his end of the bargain. AJ is obviously the star, but he's a star against everybody. Mm-hmm. So I thought this was well wrestled. I thought that there was there were good false finishes near the end. It was a well wrestled match. I thought the finish was extremely well done. Overall, they got rid of the Sings in a effective manner, which was great. I thought this was really, really well done.
No, I thought this was a very good match. And yeah, you know what? When you want to take in a match as a whole, crowd reactions does matter. Sure. Not all the way, but it does matter. And that does take a little something away from it when the crowd is seemingly bored. But maybe it was just because it's Jinder Mahal and they don't care about him. He doesn't have real heel heat. But you can't take away the fact that those two put on a fine match. And like you said, it wasn't just AJ completely carrying him. Yes, a ring general helps put together a good match, but he also needs a dance partner who knows what they're doing. And Jinder filled that role absolutely perfectly.
And Jinder had his mannerisms, his body language. He did a good job in this match. If Jinder would have been wrestling matches like this from day one, his title reign could have been a whole different thing. He's not. I'm not trying to say Jinder should be the world title holder. He should not be. I'm not trying to say that Jinder is a all-world competitor. He is not. But this shows improvement, and this shows what he could possibly accomplish. And he's been on TV enough now, and he has been the world champion long enough that he can't just fade into the background. That would be a mistake. They should keep him doing things and allow him to grow as a competitor and use this as a stepping stone for that.
Yeah. So, overall, what would you give a grade for this show?
I'm going to go... it's tough. I'm going to go B-. I I liked a lot of the aspects. I liked a lot of the finishes of the matches. I thought, once again, the World Championship match was really well done. The second main event, if you will, with Shane and Daniel Bryan, the finish was expertly executed. So even though some of the matches weren't great, and I think that were overbooked in a lot of ways, all the right people won those matches for the most part, and when you came into even the Dolph situation, it was a surprise and a pleasant one. So I thought it was a good pay-per-view, but overall, it wasn't a wow or it wasn't a great pay-per-view by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm going to give it a C+. There wasn't anything that really super stood out other than a good match for the title to me. And with that, there was nothing terrible, really, but just because of that, it seems just slightly better than average to me, so that's where I'm going to go with that. So let's head now into Monday Night Raw.
Kurt Angle has started a lot of Raws recently, and I just... every time he comes out to people chanting "You suck," I just want to like transition him to chanting "Angle, Angle." I don't know why. I'm just the "You suck" thing, because every time Kurt Angle feigns and like points to the crowd with it, it seems like he's dying a little bit inside. I don't know what it is. I just feel like he's like, really, guys, I know you're doing this because Edge and Christian made this one joke in 2003, but can we get off of this right now?
And, you know, when he was still wrestling and when he was a babyface thereafter, the "You suck" chants were directed to his opponents at that point in time. But now that he's an authority figure, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There's no one else to direct that towards.
It's just a little thing that he seems so mechanical in doing that. Like he's trying to make his body language as much as possible to show that he's in on it.
You want to talk about mechanical is when Kurt finally cut to the chase at the end of all of this. But
it was because we have all the crap that's gone down with Braun Strowman and Kane and the number one contendership. Everybody wants this. They both want to be the number one contender for Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar shows up with Paul for a very short cameo appearance of this episode of Raw. And
almost forgettable.
Yeah. And Kurt just bails out of the ring terrified. It was a nice touch. It showed that even Kurt Angle did not want to be part of what could go down, and announces the triple threat we all knew was coming. And Brock basically stands tall. He takes out both guys, but as he walks away, both guys are standing. So all three guys are looking strong.
Kurt's need to get the "oh, it's true, it's damn true" in as he's trying to exit the ring as fast as he can was like, wow, you just got to get your shit in, huh? It was like, it's going to be a triple threat match. Oh, it's true, it's damn true.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. We knew this was coming, and they did it. What else can you say about that?
Yeah, this was a disappointing Brock and Paul appearance, and I feel like I said not too long ago that, wow, they used that for a Brock appearance like a couple weeks ago.
This has happened a bunch. This has happened a bunch over the last year or so, for sure. Yeah, a little underwhelming. I'm sure he came out and destroyed somebody at the end of the episode or something, just to make the crowd happy.
I bet he was back in Canada by the end of that episode.
Quite possibly. You may be right there. The first match of the night was supposed to be Seth Rollins versus Samoa Joe. We don't get that, though. We end up through some convoluted booking, ended up with Jason Jordan versus Seth Rollins because they both want to get their hands on Samoa Joe. This was a good match. It was this is like this third week in a row we're getting long matches on Raw.
There was a sort of hinted at stipulation that the winner might get considered for a match with Samoa Joe, I believe.
Well, Joe basically booked this match.
Yeah.
He basically said, you guys fight and whoever wins can fight me. And the confrontation between Seth and Jason Jordan confirmed that. It was a fine match for what it was. Seth wins, and him and Joe brawled afterwards. And Joe ended up getting the upper hand, ended up taking out Jason Jordan on the way outside of the ring. Jordan's just kind of hanging around these feuds and gets himself injected into them later on, which set up a 6-man tag team match which is basically was that the main event? I feel like it was.
No. The last segment was the women.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. So yeah.
No,
so
that's true. It's damn true.
It's damn true.
That's true. That's very true.
So we finally got a Bray Wyatt promo that was not cut in with Matt Hardy promos, and he is being Bray, but making references to Matt Hardy's laugh and his facial expressions. How did this strike you?
Honestly, I didn't recall a single thing about it until you just said those things, because it just seemed like your typical Bray promo to me.
It is. That's how it felt to me as well. It's interesting because Matt Hardy's involved, but Bray is not doing much on this side to keep my interest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Finn Balor, we had talked about how are they going to keep up this angle with him in the Miztourage while Miz is gone. Well, apparently they're going to keep doing it, because they had him go against on a 2-on-1 handicap match. The double team of Finn ends up drawing a DQ after a short amount of time when Finn was kind of had the upper hand. And then Hideo Itami comes out to make the save, and this leads directly into a tag match with Hideo and Finn versus Bo and Axel, which Hideo Itami picks up the win, pinfall over Curtis Axel. Kind of surprised. I mean, this is not Hideo Itami entering the main roster heavyweight division. He is going to be on 205 Live. He is in the cruiserweight division, but they debut him, so to speak, helping Finn Balor out, going up against guys not on 205 Live, making him more of a big deal, maybe?
It was a very strange call, to say the least. And they even played that up. Graves going, he's supposed to debut tomorrow. I'm hoping that maybe that means that they're going to try to make him a big deal, because yeah, if they can say, oh, he can hang with heavyweights on Raw, we'll see.
And he did get a pretty good reaction. Not a great reaction, but as good as I would have hoped for. Let's put it that way.
His music got a pop. I don't know if it was because people knew it or if they knew, oh, someone's coming to save him now, type of pop. But yeah, it could have been better, but it wasn't awful.
Yeah. So we have high hopes for Hideo Itami. We have for a long time now. So we're hoping that he can finally avoid the injury bug and do something special on the main roster, whether it's cruiserweight or not. We did get, speaking of the cruiserweights, we did get Drew Gulak versus Cedric Alexander. This was the number one contender match for Enzo Amore's cruiserweight championship. Good work from both these guys. This was much more of a technical match. It was wrestled that way on both sides. Cedric Alexander got in some of his flashier spots later on, but Gulak did a really good job. I really like Drew Gulak. I know you love him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a big fan of this guy for a while, and this character that he's built up has been fantastic. His in-ring work is super solid. My issue with this match was fucking Enzo.
He just would not shut up.
He took away from the match so much because all he was doing was talking about himself.
Well, and that is in character. I don't think it was him like grandstanding. I think that it was him going out there consciously trying to take over and be the star, and that's what Enzo is trying to always do. So I thought it was very much in character. It was annoying, but I always hate Enzo, and it made me hate Enzo even more. So I have to give him props for that. But he did talk through. At several points, Cole basically had to tell him to shut up, and that's very out of Michael Cole's normal wheelhouse. He did end up walking away from commentary because he was getting text messages or instant messages or whatever the hell he said. DMs from Nia Jax, and it turned out to be Gulak looked distraught and just forlorn when he saw Enzo walking away, and that led into the lumbar check. Basically a distraction finish to a certain degree. So, but that does give us Cedric Alexander against Enzo Amore. This is probably the right move here. Yeah.
I know I've been talking about how I think that you can make Drew's babyface work as a babyface playing pretty much the same character, and I still stand by that. But it'd probably be better to build up the tension between them some more and then have it ultimately lead to a a turn for him.
You know it's not going to happen, right?
I
mean,
I'm going to hold out hope.
It's just not going to happen. We're not going to get that. They couldn't even pull Mizdow and the Miz off properly. They're not going to do this for Drew Gulak. I agree with you. I think it could be interesting, but with all the bodies they have there and all the guys already on the babyface side that they want to, like Mustafa Ali, that they want to utilize,
and now Tommy.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't see it happening, my friend. I'm sorry to say. I do see happening a really terrible romantic angle with Zoe and Nia Jax, which continues. Nia's flirtation is not what you would call subtle.
Yeah.
It is the most ham-fisted, over-the-top flirtation that you would, if you told a 7-year-old girl in a grade school play, show flirtation. That's what would happen. Mm-hmm. It is so bad and so over the top. Drew Gulak interrupting with tissue paper shoved up his nose was the best part of this entire segment.
Yeah, there's nothing else you can really say about the whole thing.
All right, we move on then to Asuka versus Alicia Fox. Asuka wins. This match probably went longer than it had to, but now Asuka, we didn't have any absolution stuff at all when we've had this now for several weeks in a row. So I think that's probably because now they're shifting their focus to the Women's Royal Rumble, which we got announced later on. So I hope they don't just drop every storyline going because they have this whole thing they want to push, but it looks like that's in the cards.
Yeah, probably.
The 6-man tag match with Seth and Dean with Jason Jordan on their side going against the Bar and Samoa Joe. Seth takes a pin after distraction. Basically, Dean Ambrose was kayfabe, or possibly now we hear actually had an injured elbow.
It was a legit injury before it, and that was their way of writing him out.
Sure. So that was a distraction that Dean was hurt on the outside. Seth eats a brogue kick, takes a pinfall loss. It's a shame to hear that Dean's going to be out, especially with it feels like that. You have kind of railed against the Shield reunion in a certain way, just thinking it's nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. I think that the universe is against the Shield reunion because you gave Roman Reigns meningitis or mono or whatever the hell he had, and then and now Dean Ambrose hurts his elbow. I mean, they're not going to be able to do this the way they wanted to.
Thank you, universe.
Thank you. And I'm not talking about the WWE universe there.
Yeah.
Matt Hardy. Let me get this right here. Matt Hardy was playing chess with a fish.
Yes.
That was apparently Napoleon.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else about that?
No.
It was funny.
Yeah.
It was charming in its own way, and the fact that he battled with him on the loo of water, and it was just the most. It just continues to be completely bizarre, and its own particular brand of crazy.
Yeah, it was entertaining. That's there's no doubting that.
They continued to play off Dean Ambrose's injured elbow by having him jumped in the back by the Bar and Samoa Joe, kind of hammering home the fact that he's probably going to be gone for a little while. We did get a return after this in a tag team match. The Revival are back on Raw. Speaking of guys who have been bit by the injury bug twice now and really inopportune times, they are back. Did not get a very good reaction. I thought that the crowd kind of sat on their hands for this entire match, unfortunately. It's kind of be expected. They weren't necessarily... They hit after WrestleMania with a really, really positive crowd, but it wasn't like they were setting the world on fire. This is a team that needs to be there. It needs to build momentum, and they need to be on TV to do that.
Yeah.
They did go against Heath Slater and Rhino. It was a relatively short match. They did win. They did go over here. We did have Titus O'Neil, Apollo Crews, and Dana Brooke watching this match.
Yes.
And apparently Dana Brooke was writing down numbers. Because she's a statistician or something. Wonder who they're interested in there. I hope it's not the Revival, because everything that they tear into their little world doesn't go very well.
It probably is, though, based off of heel-face dynamic.
Yeah, unless they're trying to recruit Rhino and Heath Slater.
Possibly.
And that could be somewhat comical, because both those guys have charm and stuff. They have charisma, I think we'd say.
I'm also going to guess that the Dana was writing down 0 because the Revival are no flips, which would mean 0 flips and just fists.
Okay.
Yep. That's what I said there.
You heard that here first, apparently. Good for the Revival. We really hope that we see some good things from them. We then did see another interesting, hopefully an interesting storyline going forward with Rhino and Heath Slater being approached by Kurt Angle. Rhino takes the toughen up that Angle tells them to do literally and says that he knows exactly what they need to do to toughen up. What we don't get very often is any kind of real storyline for mid-carders. We've seen everything from Gold Dust. Every time they start something, listen, you can just go down the line. Gold Dust, you can talk about Kurt Hawkins. You can talk about just over and over again. They start these little tidbits and then they never finish them off. They're starting to plant a seed with Rhino and Heath Slater about something. Well, I'm interested to see what that something is. I'd like to see a story happen because of that. Vince Russo always says, incorrectly, mind you, but because it's Vince Russo, that in the Attitude Era, everybody had a storyline. Not quite true, but more people did have stories going throughout, and it was better for the product. Well, this is the kind of things we need to see happen, and I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, when you have as much television as you do, you should have time to be able to do it.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I guess it's just because they wanted to put Elias on TV. They just had him interrupted by all the introductions for the women for the 6-woman tag match at the end of the night.
Yeah.
It was kind of bizarre.
It was, because they were like, oh, we forgot to put him on TV last week, so go out there and we'll have Sasha and Bailey and Mickey interrupt you.
He did not hug Bailey, and that got some raised the ire of the crowd, which it should. Anytime Bailey offers you a hug, you hug Bailey. It was a DQ win for the baby faces after the heels just start attacking Sasha. This match really wasn't anything to write home about. It didn't last very long. Nia comes out to save, and then there's chop blocks to Nia, and then all the roster empties out into the ring, and everyone's beaten up on Absolution. It's 7-on-3 over there. I mean, it's really ludicrous that Absolution's trying to take over division when they are vastly outnumbered and can get beaten up so easily. And then the wheels come off the bus, in my opinion. My take on Stephanie McMahon's music hitting, them stopping beating up Absolution. So, music hits, they're not angry anymore, and they all just kind of stand in the ring side by side, like they're all friends.
Why didn't Absolution hit the bricks?
Why didn't they at least run them out of the ring?
Yeah.
Something to show that this part of this situation was done. Having Stephanie's music hit and that everyone stop what they're doing is so busting kayfabe that it's ridiculous. Then to have them all stand in the ring side by side as Stephanie announces the all women's Royal Rumble match. Hey, I'm excited for that. I think it'll be a great thing, and I love the fact that they're going forward with it. But this is the worst possible way to introduce it. It's all about Stephanie McMahon. She comes out and announces the whole thing and tries to hype everybody up for it. And all the heels and people that are supposed to hate each other, Absolution has run roughshod over this division and beaten each one of these people up individually and taken them out and tried to injure them. And they're all standing doing yes chants together.
This was like a curtain call.
Yeah, the heels
after a play.
Like Paige is all excited about just the opportunity to be in the Women's Royal Rumble match. I thought they were trying to take over the division. I thought that they had an agenda that was different from seeing women be respected more in WWE and get more of a spot. I understand that they feel that way. I understand that it's basically like the show ended when Stephanie's music hit, and then it was a house show. And then it was, it was basically a press conference that's not storyline related. Mm-hmm. And it was just ridiculous.
This, I saw a great tweet about this, and it was that the main roster's women's divisions seem more intent on making history than providing us with good stories, good action that goes along with it, and truly trying to get these women over as equals. Instead, we're constantly being told they're making history doing this, making history doing that, but there's no real story that goes with it other than history. History, history, history. Like, it was so dumb to see all the heels and the faces standing next to one another, cheering. Like, they could have done a press conference. Like, they could have hyped this up weeks in advance and been like, the WWE is going to be holding a press conference at Madison Square Garden on this coming day that they'll be live streaming on their Facebook account. Stephanie McMahon's going to be there. So-and-so is going to be there. And you have these people sitting at the table next to her. You have the heels and the faces on different sides. And they can still kind of be in character instead of having them all standing next to one another.
They could have had her announce it on the big screen, and you could have had factions kind of different compartments of the ring. You could have had someone like Asuka hear that there's going to be a women's rumble, which means that she's going to have a chance to win an opportunity to fight for a championship, right?
Yeah.
So she could have kind of looked at the rest of the division and said, well, you're all on notice now because I'm going to win this thing and I'm going to go get a title. They would never do that for the men. They would never do that for any other kind of division. They do that because, like you said, they're obsessed with making history. Make history by having the best television possible. Make history by having the best feuds possible. We didn't have to hear about Sasha and Bayley in NXT making history. We just went out there and saw incredible series of matches with a personal rivalry that felt like it was the most important thing going on NXT, not just in the women's division. Set that up. Set that up. Give us Asuka. Give us Charlotte. Give us Ronda Rousey if she's coming in. Give us Paige. Give us the best talent imaginable and give them real feuds that matter and mean something, and then put them in a situation where, you know what? I do believe that a women's feud absolutely can headline a WrestleMania. Without a doubt in my mind, that can happen. But it's not going to be because you keep talking about history. It's because of the storyline and the effort you put into it of making these characters believable. And that when everybody stops and acts like they're all best friends, it just takes you completely out of the moment. And it seems like you just put a stop to every storyline going. And we've done nothing but this for 2 years now. No personal feud one-on-one means anything in the women's division. It's all about multi-person matches and 6-person tag matches. And that's why the division, you have to tell people we're making history instead of just going out and doing it.
Mm-hmm. So that did it for Monday Night Raw. Heading into SmackDown, the show after Clash of Champions, Daniel Bryan kicks things off. Massive pop for a guy who screwed over the face authority figure. He has some good housekeeping, I guess, to start things off by saying that SmackDown Live will be participating in the Women's Royal Rumble as well, and announces a 6-person tag match for the main event. KO Sami Jinder versus Randy Nakamura and AJ. Shane comes out, I wrote here, says dumb things. Pretty much just recaps, like, step by step, blow by blow, what happened on Sunday. I thought that's what we had the video and the still photo packages for. And Brian pretty much says, I did it to save you from you. And I don't want Shane McMahon to turn into Mr. McMahon. And this made Shane make some faces and maybe contemplate something for a moment, and then says, all right, good luck with tonight to Daniel Bryan, and then he leaves.
This is the second night in a row. I actually thought this was pretty well done. I think that Shane going through the motions, while a little bit annoying, was important to say, yeah, you didn't fall, you fell into me. You were pushed into me. I didn't realize it at the time. And I let my emotions get the best of me. I thought it was a good rundown and at least showed his perspective on things. And I love the fact that it didn't get into he was fired and they got... I think this was a good buffer. And they didn't shoot their wad, so to speak, right there. They're holding it back for a little while. So even though, listen, I'm trying to get in, even though I'm not a big fan of authority figures feuding, I think they're doing a pretty good job of it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that Brian was great during this. And Brian has been, when given some extended time to talk and allowed to kind of just be him, he's always hit it out of the park. So I thought that he was quite good. Our first match of the night, and you'll see a theme here, was a tag team match. The Usos taking on Benjamin and Gable. Nothing really at stake. They said that there could be title implications to this if Gable and Benjamin win, which they do win. And does that give them a title shot for the future? Possibly, most likely. It would be kind of strange to have them beat the champions and then flip-flop who is going to be the next challengers.
Yeah, I'm happy to see. This is a feud that I've been wanting, a proper feud, and this is what we thought we were building towards for the last pay-per-view, what we just had, but we ended up having a bunch of other teams thrown in there. So these guys are going to put on good matches. I like the mean streak that especially Chad Gable has been showing, and I think this is a good thing.
Yeah. Charlotte came out next, dressed as a peacock.
She's always dressed as a peacock, my friend.
It looked a little more, I don't know.
Same thing she always
Really?
wears. Yeah.
Okay. She hypes up the Royal Rumble match. Naomi comes out and declares her entrance into the Rumble. Riot Squad comes out, and this, of course, leads into a tag team match. Charlotte and Naomi taking on Sarah Logan and Ruby Riott. Sarah Logan making sure we all know that she is Southern. That's kind of her gimmick. And then some miscommunication between Liv and Logan, and that is so... Okay. That is so crazy and just annoying that they have Logan and Morgan on the same... it's trying to differentiate their last names is crazy to me at some points. But Liv gets up on the apron to try to cause a distraction, and Logan ends up giving her a kind of spear, and the baby faces end up winning. And just normal babyface win after bad heel distraction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing else to really get into there.
Not really. This was
because we mentioned there was no signs of Natty or anything having to do with her whole story that came out of Clash.
Yeah, we didn't get any of that. And now I just feel like we are now going to be in limbo because all the women available are going to be going in for a Rumble match.
Yeah.
So are we even going to get a feud going into Rumble for either one of the women's champions? Probably not.
Just each week we're going to, and you know, that's a good point, is are we going to get title matches at Rumble as well, to where then the champions and their challengers aren't in the Rumble, so taking 4 people pretty much out of it? I don't know. We'll see. I feel like every week we'll get people declaring that they're in it as if there is that many people.
It's going to be every woman on the roster.
Yeah. Maybe they'll have something where a couple NXT people will be in it. That would be interesting.
No, that'd be great.
Because they've at least been doing that with the men's Royal Rumble for the past few years.
Sure.
We get New Day in the back giving out pancakes dressed in gingerbread and reindeer and elf costumes. And Rusev and Aiden come in dressed as Santa and a snowman, respectively. And they lay out a challenge. They want to take on the New Day for later on in the evening. And the New Day accepts, mostly because Rusev talked trash about pancakes and stomped on a pancake. And I knew right then and there, they're so wrestling in those outfits. Dolph comes out for his U.S. Championship celebration, and as you mentioned earlier, practically did the same type of promo that Natty did at Clash of Champions. You don't respect me. You don't deserve me. And then pretty much renounces the title. Just drops the title in the middle of the ring and walks out. I thought this was pretty interesting. I mean, we've known that this Dolph against the world character had potential. I think that this is a step in the right direction here. I think that it is showing, all right, now, and I kind of explained my thought process to you earlier, so I'll just rehash it for the whole show, that I think that the title represents the establishment that it isn't helping Dolph. It represents the crowd, the universe that he doesn't want to have anything to do with. So Dolph's all about just showing them up and not wanting to be a part of them. So by renouncing that title that represents the crowd and the establishment that he wants to be against, I think it's an interesting direction.
It is certainly interesting. I saw a lot of potential in this. I don't want to perform for you anymore, Dolph Ziggler. They haven't done a very good job with it, but there's potential there. This better be good. Because if you have a guy win your secondary championship, and there's now one on each show for the men, if you have a guy win your secondary championship and then walk out 2 nights later and basically give his title up, it looks really bad for the title. Now, the only way this works well is if this is a good storyline that gets interest and gets Dolph over and gets somebody else over in the process. They've had a running problem for about, 25 years of making secondary championships mean anything. And we've had to, how many times was someone going to rehab a title and make it special again? John Cena did amazing things for the U.S. Championship. It was just because it was on John Cena's waist. On anybody else's waist, no one cared because they'd never make it special or unique or interesting. So to have a guy walk in and possibly, we're not sure exactly how it's going to play out, but basically renounce his championship, that just, it rubs me a little bit the wrong way.
So you probably won't get this reference, but and I'm not 100% knowledgeable on the topic, but this reminds me a little bit of a storyline that has gone on in New Japan with Tetsuya Naito and his fall out of grace with the fans and then building up a character that doesn't care what anyone thinks about him and just doing things for him. And he never renounced the titles, but he treated the titles like shit. Like they didn't matter to him. He would come out to the ring and he'd kick the belt down the aisle instead of carrying it, because he didn't care. It represented everything that treated him wrong. He took that the crowd turned on him, the company turned on him. So why am I going to respect something that doesn't respect me? So I see them slightly doing little things with that here. So that's why I think that if they do it right, they could have something really good on their hands because Naito is now one of the biggest names in New Japan right now.
I think you got a lot of hope there.
It is.
You're putting a lot of trust
it is.
One thing happening.
I know.
Going a long way down a road. What you just described, that sounds like something that could work. So let's just hope that... But we know what's going to actually happen. They're going to forget all about this at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just not going to do anything. Because they never do anything with any of these character development. It's a 1 week thing, and then they get ADD and do something else. Mm-hmm. But I hope what you're saying is something that they consider and hopefully go forward with.
Yeah. We had a brief backstage thing with Sammy and KO trying to suck up to Daniel Bryan by giving him champagne, despite that he doesn't drink. And then New Day versus Aiden and Rusev. This was a comedy match for all intents and purposes. Fine. You know what? All of these guys are more than capable of doing comedy, and they're entertaining. Corey Graves was losing his shit over pancakes and the whole thing. He probably, what did you count? 5 Elf references?
At least 5. He must love the movie Elf. I love the movie Elf, so I love you, Corey Graves, even more. There was as much interesting and fun stuff going on in commentary as there was inside the ring on this one. Him just berating Byron Saxton was a lot of fun.
New Day wins. Pancakes were involved in it. Okay, fine. It was just a placeholder thing for the week, and it was there for Vince McMahon to get his jollies off. And then we had the 6-man tag match for the main event. This was structured a lot like a dark match. The baby faces pretty much got all of their stuff in, and they took out all of the heels at the end before setting up one final finisher. Nakamura hitting Sammy with the Kinshasa for the win. They pose. They just play to the crowd a whole lot.
Everyone got their finisher in.
Yeah.
Yeah, this definitely felt like that. This was definitely your dark match style, send the crowd home happy kind of match. But I will say one thing, and that's that the intensity from Nakamura and even Randy Orton was a little bit higher than normal. And it's kind of jarring when you see Randy really into something. I know the cliche is that, oh, he's great when he wants to be, when he's motivated. I think it's probably a little bit overplayed. But you definitely saw Randy really animated and kind of going all in on this match. And Nakamura, his knee strikes had a little more oomph in them. He kind of exploded more in some of his offense. And the crowd was definitely behind Nakamura in this. I'm hoping that they allow him to continue to be brutal and use his offense in a unique way, which they have not allowed him to do. At least that's what we figure. The reason he has not had the kind of matches that he would be able to do in NXT in New Japan. This was a placeholder. This was not anything special. This is not indicative of anything to come. But you could tell that the guys were putting their effort in this one.
Oh yeah, I think Nakamura even was probably got the lion's share amount of ring time from the faces. It seemed like he was in there the most amount of time out of them.
Yeah.
And this was nothing came about after this between Shane and Brian, so we're going to possibly have a slow burn like you were talking about there. A few things kind of note of television this week is we talked about the people who were not on SmackDown. We had no Roman Reigns on Raw.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to mention that, and then I just kind of forgot because...
And it took me until about 10:30 to be like, we haven't had Roman on the show yet.
Yeah, a little surprising. That not only wasn't there, is that he wasn't mentioned. But
no.
Not necessarily a bad thing. We always kind of call out, oh, we haven't seen this guy in a while. Oh, they didn't follow up on this storyline. Yet we do have a lot of respect for NXT when they produce TV and we don't see everybody every single week. Mm-hmm. It's different with the main roster because they have more time, especially 3 hours on Raw.
Especially their golden calf.
Yeah, but there's something to be said about not overexposing everybody all the time and having Roman miss an episode. I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm. Also, from stuff that I read is, I guess, filming for the Marine is wrapped. So we might be seeing Miz coming back pretty soon.
Damn, that was fast.
Yeah. I thought it was supposed to be 4 to 6 weeks. And I think that's only been 3 to maybe 4. Because it was, what was it, the night after Survivor Series that he lost the title?
I can't remember.
Or it was either that night or it was the following week.
I think it was the following
week.
So
they wrap pretty quick. So hopefully... And maybe that leads into him and Finn, and they had that placeholder last just long enough.
Sure.
So we'll be happy to see Miz come back soon. Other than that, I don't think... I mean, the whole Ronda Rousey rumors are picking up a whole lot of her coming to WWE. If that happens, we'll see.
I'd love to see it because Ronda Rousey brings mainstream attention, and that's a great thing. I just don't want the people that are already there who have been busting their ass and getting over with the crowd. I just don't want to see them sacrificed, so to speak. I'm all for the best person to be in that position. And if Ronda Rousey can pull off great matches and is going to be around for a while, then that's fine. But Asuka, Charlotte, Becky Lynch, I mean, we still never saw the Bayley and Sasha Banks rivalry on the main roster that we could be seeing. And that's just a shame.
Yeah. I mean, outside of that, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
No, sir.
All right. Well, that will do it for us here today on this episode. Make sure that you follow us on our social media outlets, such as Twitter and Instagram at MissSpots. You can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/MissSpots. You can listen to this podcast in one of many different fashions, whichever is more suitable for your needs. You can listen to us on our website, MissSpotsPodcast.com, or simply MissSpots.com. But we're also available on practically all of the streaming services that are available for podcasts, such as iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Overcast, Podcast Addict, practically all of them. So you can get us there. Let your friends, family, anyone that you know that is really into wrestling podcasts, know that they can listen to us there. It'd be greatly appreciated. We'll see you guys next week. Make sure that you have a very happy and safe holidays. Merry Christmas to you all. We'll see you next week for our year in review and our awards for 2017. You know, they're the most prestigious wrestling awards out there.
Without a doubt.
For Kevin, my name is Mike. We'll catch you next week. Good night. Good wrestling.